I just don't think it's fair to us to get caught up in somebody else's adversity, because then how are we going to get through ours? And man, as we sit here today, there's a lot more coming for us, a lot more. And the only way to be ready for that is to know that we overcame what we have in the past. You've overcome a lot of things in your life to get to where you are today. And it can be mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, but life is constantly trying to take you out of the game. And I just don't think we should view how somebody else is playing their game.
Welcome to It's Settled, the Amitros podcast. Each episode, we're going to dig into the humanity in workers' compensation and insurance claims, exploring the stories of injured people and those who support them, as well as the good work professionals are doing in the industry. And now, I invite you to join me, Sean Dean, General Counsel at Amitros and the host of It's Settled. Now, it's settled. Let's get on to the episode. We have Jason Schechterle here. I can't thank you enough, Jason, for joining us on the It's Settled podcast, because we believe every injured worker has a story that deserves to be told. And I was fortunate enough, it was actually by mistake. I got on the bill to speak at the National Structured Settlement Trade Association's conference in DC. And I was slated to go on later in the day. And I decided to skip going out to coffee. And I saw on the program this gentleman, Jason Schechterle, was going to be speaking, and I figured I'll stick around. And I was just blown away in the most positive way and inspired. And I'll admit it, I cried along with another colleague of mine, and I also laughed quite a bit. And I was just floored by your story, Jason, and the positive work that you've done and your outlook, and just sort of, I feel what I felt like was a lifetime of wisdom and love and kindness wrapped up into, a 45-minute talk. So I'm super, super grateful to have you, Jason. I can't thank you enough.
You're very welcome. And thanks for the opportunity. I'm glad that fate had it in store for you to be there for that.
And speaking of fate, I'd like to get into your story and sort of things leading up to it. But as you were talking to me, or talking to the group, rather, I felt like you were talking to me. You connected with everybody. I'm typically not someone who believes in fate. I kind of think it's just a probabilistic roll of the dice. But when you described the events leading up to the accident and the immediate aftermath, to me, like you couldn't calculate that. It almost seemed beyond belief, just the small things that happen. But it really shook me and caused me to look at some things differently. But I guess before we even get to the accident, just give folks, the viewers, just kind of a background of where you came from. Obviously, this leads up to you having a career in law enforcement with the accident, but what was the calling? What was your childhood like? Where'd you grow up?
Born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, and childhood was just perfect. I have nothing but wonderful memories, great family, playing sports, great friends, doing all the things. I grew up I'm so thankful all the time for how old I am right now, because I turned 8 in 1980 and turned 18 in 1990. And wow. There just was no better decade for music, clothes, politics, girls' hair. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
It was just the best decade, and I'll always be grateful for that. And after I graduated high school, I went to college to play golf, but very quickly realized, that I did have a call to serve. I wanted to serve. I wanted to be in uniform. And I also thankfully recognized that I needed some structure and discipline in my life. And so at 18 years old, I joined the Air Force, fully intending to just do the required 4 years, but that was my path versus staying in college. So loved every minute of the Air Force as well, and got to see a lot of different places in the world and learn. And it did exactly what I wanted it to do. It gave me structure and discipline. It made me mature very quickly. And then I came home, and life just took off on me. I met and married my wife, Susie. We had a couple of kids, and I ended up with a job with one of our power companies here in Phoenix, where I live, Arizona Public Service, and started out at the Palo Verde nuclear plant. And then I got an apprenticeship to be a lineman. I was outside every day. The old school blue collar work that I love, and I was making a great salary. I mean, life was just going so well, and it always had. I mean, it's just crazy to look back on my young years and even into adulthood. My parents were healthy and married. All four of my grandparents were alive and married. And when I look back on that now, to think, wow, most people suffer or experience something when they're kids. I mean, I've watched my own kids now lose grandparents, and I just never went through anything. And it's not that I took it for granted. I didn't know that I was so lucky, but it's hindsight is 20/20 for a reason. So, and then when I was 26, again, just loving life, everything about it. And I came off work one day, March 26, 1999, lead story on the 5 o'clock news, Phoenix police officer Mark Atkinson was shot and killed in the line of duty. And officers die in the line of duty. And, Phoenix is a big city. Growing up here, I know we had lost numerous officers. I don't know what it was about that day or Mark. Maybe it was my age, but I just knew it was truly an aha moment, a calling. And I went the very next day, filled out an application with the city of Phoenix. Took a few months to get through the hiring process, but I was blessed and lucky enough to be given the opportunity. And I started the academy in September of 1999. It was the first graduating class of 2000.
Wow. Was your, I don't know if you had kids at that point. Was your wife supportive of you going into law enforcement?
Yeah, we had two kids. We had a daughter and a son, a brand new son. He was born June 2nd of 1998. So, he was barely a little over a year old. Had built our first brand new house. And my wife was very supportive. She just, I don't think she understood right away, like how I was just going to turn on a dime in a matter of a news story. But when you know what you're calling, you know it. And she supported me, and especially going through the academy, which I didn't think it was. I actually enjoyed the academy, but I credit my military experience for making the police academy enjoyable versus difficult or stressful. I mean, again, structure and discipline, that's how they go about things. And that came easy for me. But she took care of the kids while I was up till 1 a.m. doing homework, learning criminal law stuff. I didn't know. I didn't know anything. And, I think she was worried when I graduated. It's funny to think now the world is so much more dangerous today than back then. I mean, it was dangerous back then, but it wasn't like every traffic stop, every call, every day. Yeah. You were like, I might not come home tonight. We don't think that way. We truly don't. And, but I know she was a little bit worried my first couple days, couple weeks. And as I would come home and tell her the stories, and she would see how much I was enjoying the job and trying to be the best I could be, learn. It takes a while to learn that. I think it's easily a 3 to 5 year learning process, and obviously I didn't get to do it for that long with what happened. But once I found my groove, it was just something I look forward to every day. Love that job.
Yeah. I mean, just to relate to that a little bit, my best friend who's out in California, he's a California High Patrol officer. He's going to be retiring in 3 years. He started in 99 too. And when I was going through college and grad school and law school, every time I came home, he'd pick me up and go on a ride along. So I spent numerous hours with him in the car from the time he started, up until very recently when he got off the road. I was always blown away at how much decision making he had to do in a very small amount of time, and beyond knowing, all the applicable laws and regs, you have to be able to really interface with a whole variety of people. Yes. In very stressful situations. Yes. I used to be jealous of him because it's such a dynamic job. And I'm just curious, like you're, leading up to the accident before then, like how did you enjoy law enforcement?
I enjoyed so many different aspects. Of course, I enjoyed like the emergency calls, or, I enjoyed taking bad guys to jail because that's what they needed at the time. And I would get this sense, you answer a 911 call, and people only call 911 when they're having one of their worst days.
Yeah.
And when you show up, it doesn't matter what you look like. It's the fact that your car, your sirens, and your uniform are letting them know I'm about to make things better for you. And it gives them a sense of, okay, help is here. That's a great feeling, selfishly, as a first responder. But then I also love like what you were talking about. I learned from a motor officer very young in the academy. And motor officers, they have nothing to do but write tickets. I mean, that's all they do. Yeah. But this guy taught my class the importance of not everybody needs a ticket or needs to go to jail or needs a financial burden. It's just simply about education and changing driving behavior. So I used to love to pull somebody over so that I could let them go and just have a night. Now, if they wanted to be jerks, that's a different story. But if they were nice and would understand, we could have this nice interaction. And those are the aspects of the job that I really loved, was the interaction. And the gift of gab and your pen are so much mightier than your gun or anything else. And so those are some of the things I just felt like I was good at, and I liked it.
Could we talk about the night of the accident and sort of the events immediately, leading up to that? Was it the end of a shift? Was it the beginning?
It was pretty close to the end of the shift. I went to work at 3 p.m. I was supposed to work until 1 o'clock in the morning. And this incident, to be exact, took place at 11:21 p.m. And
what was the date? What year was it?
It was March 26th of 2001. So it was 2 years
to the day
after Mark Axon died. It was, and I had gone after you go through what's called briefing first to get kind of the day's events and things that you might need to know before you hit the streets. And when you hit the streets, you're supposed to go what's called 10-8 in service, start answering calls. And I didn't. I drove over to Mark's memorial, and I spent a few minutes with his memorial, thanking him for his sacrifice and thanking him for the opportunity, and saying things like, look, I'm going to make sure I do this job the right way because of you and people who went before me. I mean, I was so serious about it and so humbled by it. But of course, little did I know that life was about to take a turn in a little over 8 hours, and I was going to come very close to needing that same memorial marker that he had. And yeah, you talked about it earlier. I think fate these are questions we can never answer. It is unbelievable, the timing and the choices made by a lot of people over a lot of years. Nothing just happens in a magic random moment. Yeah. But yeah, the timing of my incident started pretty innocently. I answered up for a call that I did not need to answer up for. It was not in my area, but the officers that were busy And so, I mean, it just, I think anybody would have done what I did. You don't leave it was an emergency call. So you don't leave that. You don't ignore that if you're available. And because it was out of my area and I had a long ways to drive, an emergency call, I was driving lights and siren, get there as quick as I can. And I came to stop at a red light, just about 5 minutes east of downtown Phoenix. It was one of our freeway overpasses. And so a pretty, big intersection. And I needed to stop for the red light to make sure the people getting on and off that freeway would yield to my emergency vehicle. And it only takes, a second and a half to clear an intersection. It happens quick. And just as I was going to proceed, I was struck from behind by a taxi cab. The driver was suffering an epileptic seizure at the time. And according to the investigation, he was doing 115 miles an hour, which, that's a speed I can't really fathom on a 40-mile-an-hour downtown city street. I didn't see him coming. I didn't feel the impact, thankfully. But my car, upon impact, burst into flames. I was knocked unconscious, so immediately trapped inside my seatbelt in a burning vehicle. And at that speed, I traveled 271 feet through the intersection before my car finally came to rest. And it came to rest 50 feet from a fire truck, which, again, the timing, the miracles, just you cannot even explain how there's a fire truck in the exact intersection at the exact time that I needed them.
You had mentioned too, and I might have the part of the story wrong, but there was a boot who was just had started and I guess was delayed in getting to the truck. So the fire truck had stopped for some reason. Is that right?
Well, what happened was so there's 4 firefighters on a crew. 3 of them got on the truck and they waited about 45 seconds. And the rookie, the boot, wasn't joining them. And one of them ran back in the station and they found this young man sound asleep in his bunk. He had never heard the alarm. And so, those precious few seconds, we're not having this conversation right now.
I mean, it's
a funny miracle, but it's a miracle nonetheless.
And the passenger, as I recall, in the taxi cab was a newly released inmate who had served time.
Just got out of jail and he called a cab to get a ride home.
I can't wrap my head around that. So someone had committed a crime years and years before, years before, had been convicted, served time, and had picked that moment to call a cab when they got out. And I mean, it's sort of, there's some, I don't know what the word is even, it's not irony, but you're a law enforcement officer on your way to do some good work. And there's a former criminal who's on their way being released into the world, who has a taxi driver who suffers a medical emergency. I mean, it's unbelievable. As I say, that's like, a Hollywood producer couldn't even make up the events. And I don't mean to dramatize the incident that, forever changed your and your family's life, but I can't dismiss the fact that it seems, you said fate again, like it seems like this was almost like you were meant to be at that intersection at that time. And I hate to look at it that way, but I have, and I hope I don't offend you by asking the question. If for a 10-second window back in 2001, you knew what was going to happen and you got that call, would you take the call or would you make a left?
100 times out of 100 times, I would take that call because first of all, I wouldn't just remove myself, but even over the years when I was like, well, what if I could have removed him? Because I wouldn't have let the car go to the next intersection and hit and kill a woman with her kids or somebody's grandparents. But 21 years later, with where I'm at in life and things that have happened, I wouldn't trade that for the world. So again, hindsight's 20/20. There's a reason we have crystal clear eyesight in our past. So no, and even at the time, I never, or once I started to learn about what had happened to my injuries, I never once thought, why me, or how unlucky am I, or I hate that guy who hit me. None of those thoughts ever crossed my mind. It's just
mean, I didn't even think of that. Such a good point, Jason. I mean, he would have gone through another intersection.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there would have been a traffic collision, no matter what.
He had to hit something before he stopped. He was in the midst of a grand mal seizure. And I mean, I listened to the passenger during the trial. And I mean, can you imagine what a harrowing ride that guy was on in the backseat of a car doing 115, and you know you're going to hit something, and you probably know you're going to die.
And he was just released from prison too. Did you ever end up having a conversation did the driver survive?
He did. The driver survived. Actually suffered, all he suffered was a badly broken leg that required surgery and a short stay in the hospital. And he was arrested because he had caused a bunch of other accidents. He wasn't properly medicating. He lied onto his MVD application stating he did not have a medical condition. So while there are accidents, especially, medical, if you're driving down the road and have a heart attack and run into something, that's not really your fault. It is an accident. This guy, the investigation determined that it was criminal, and he was arrested. And so at the trial, he ended up telling the judge that his leg was broken so bad because a bunch of my police friends went to the hospital and beat him up. And so when he said that, it was just so ridiculous and petty. And I pride myself on integrity and character, and this guy clearly has none. And so I kind of giggled and just was like, yeah, I'm not going to give him another thought. But also, part of the reason I didn't have the anger was he wasn't targeting me. He wasn't trying to hurt a police officer or Jason. He made a lot of bad decisions over so many years that got him to that intersection, but he wasn't coming after me. Whereas there are a lot of officers and military people that somebody will point a gun at you and say, you're not going home tonight. And then you can develop the PTS or anger issues. And I'm very lucky I didn't have to deal with that. I chose not to think of it that way.
So the immediate aftermath, the accident occurs, and obviously your patrol car is engulfed in flames. There's emergency medical personnel very close by. What happens at that point? I mean, everybody just goes to you.
Yeah, and complete chaos. Obviously.
Are you conscious, Jason?
No,
Okay.
Thankfully, no. And I love talking to the individuals who were on scene, because the human side of things, the human emotions, I know that no matter what uniform you're wearing or what job you're doing, when you're not prepared for the world to literally blow up right in front of you, you don't know how you're going to react and respond. And, I give these individuals just so much credit for doing what they were trained to do in a matter of seconds, that they all had individual jobs to do. Each one of those firefighters, and then 2 police officers arrived on scene, and they didn't know who it was, but they knew one of their friends, one of their peers, was dying in one of the worst ways possible. You're still consumed with all these emotions, and they did an amazing job. I mean, they had me out of the car from impact to extrication was 90 seconds, and that's unheard of. And then another miracle, another twist of fate. I'm 2.5 miles from what I would argue is the best burn center in this entire United States, at Maricopa County Hospital. And I was on their trauma table in less than 8 minutes.
Unbelievable.
That's unbelievable. I mean, when you talk about like the golden hour and what it takes to save a life, and I go from being hit to being on the emergency room table in 8 minutes. That's just insanely ironic and lucky. But all those people, I don't ever want to take away from what those firefighters did, what the police officers did, what the paramedics did, finding a place to put an IV in my charred, blackened body at the time, and then to get me to the hospital. And then they have to step back and that's all I can do. I did my part. Now it's up to the doctors. Now it's my wife getting woke up in the middle of the night and her life being changed forever. And my parents' door being knocked on in the middle of the night and my friends being called. It's just, and I slept through the whole thing. I didn't have to experience all that pain and fear and chaos that they were going through.
I've watched some videos on it. Your presentation at NASTA, you showed pictures, but I saw one video. I think he was like he's a physician, and he was woken up in the middle of the night because I think he headed up the burn unit, and he came and he said, like, Jason's not gonna make it. He said he'd never seen someone that bad, and you hear an expert say that. It's just.
Yeah. Dr. Dan Caruso, unfortunately, he passed away of cancer 5 years ago, which is just, I think that's the only time I've ever been angry at God. I'm like, all right, of all the people you don't take off this earth at 50 years old, you don't take this guy because he has saved so many lives. But yeah, he's the chief of the burn center, the chief of trauma. And if he says, I've never seen burns like this, it means something. And he told my family very frankly, that I would not survive.
So you were, I have to imagine you were put in some medically induced coma.
Oh yeah.
And what was the immediate, what was the take me through like the first 30 days from, getting at the hospital.
Well, burns are a unique injury. They will keep on burning. So what they have to do right away, a lot of people survive burn injuries. But then 5, 6, 7 weeks later, they die of infections or things like that. So even though Dr. Caruso told my family I was not going to survive, he still had to get me into surgery immediately and start getting all of that dead bacteria-filled tissue off of me. And, I was a 43% burn, my neck, head, and face in its entirety, 4th degree, so everything. Down to the last layers of muscle into the bone, my shoulders to my hands. And so, the first surgery was basically not only removing my burns, but removing my entire physical identity, my ears, my nose, my eyelids, everything that made me who I was on the outside was just being cut off. And I was in a medically induced coma. The pain and surgeries I was facing, I was hooked up I had a trach in my neck to help me breathe. And then I would not have survived losing all of that tissue, the protection, the fluids. So you have to become a tissue recipient and organ and tissue donation. It's easy to talk about a heart transplant or a kidney transplant, but a tissue, one person, like, unfortunately, if you passed away suddenly and you're a tissue donor, you can help 120 people. It's amazing. And, but the other thing is tissue doesn't, you cannot use somebody else's for very long. Your body will always reject. You can only use your own. Okay. So I had dozens and dozens of donors just keeping my open wounds protected until I got to the point after a few weeks where they could start using, like, my back, for example,
grafting
was not burned because of my bulletproof vest. So my legs, my back, they were able to take skin grafts and put them, on my head, on my face, they amputated several or half my fingers, and we put skin grafts on my hands. So that was basically the first 30 days was continuing to try and save my life. Because every day it wasn't, after the first surgery or after the third day, at no point did the doctors come in and say, okay, he's out of the woods, he's stable. No, it was every day. This is probably the day that he's going to pass away. And it went that way for, probably two months.
Okay. How was your wife notified?
My best friend, we're actually partners, and we just happened to not be riding together that day because we were short-staffed. And again, had we been riding together, a 2-man unit does things a lot differently than a single person unit. So a lot of people over the years were like, oh, they would ask my partner, hey, do you have survivor's guilt, or do you feel bad? And we both always been like, no, because we would have never been on that call or in that intersection. The whole day would have been different, and it would have changed our location and the seconds involved. So anyway, he happened to intercept the ambulance. When he heard it was a police car, I wasn't answering. He was trying to get me on. Cell phones were kind of new back then, but we had them. I wasn't answering the computer, and he figured pretty quickly that it was me. And he came to the hospital, and he was allowed into the emergency room. He was the only one. And he recognized a tattoo I had on my arm. And then, you talk about the emotions involved, because, and I have talked to him over the years. We're still best friends, and he's still a police officer. But to have to try to not worry about me, like knowing Jason's going to die, not letting your tears or your anger, not whatever you're going to feel. He had a job to do, and that was he had to go wake my wife up in the middle of the night and completely change her life forever. And that's, later on down the line, him and my wife knew each other pretty good. I mean, we are very close, our families. And so I try to imagine how difficult. I would not have wanted to be in his shoes at all. But, later down the line, when I was a homicide detective, I had to do a lot of next kin notifications. And I'll tell you what, when you pull up in front of somebody's house and you know that as soon as you knock on the door, their life will never be the same. It is a power that you do not want in your hands. And to think about Brian having to do that for his best friend and my wife. So anyway, that's how she was notified. He called my brother, and my brother went and got my parents. He called a bunch of our friends, and he told them, very matter of fact, like, this is not going to end well. And he was just trying to get her back to the hospital to say goodbye. And he did a great job. He got her down there in an hour.
At what point do you start coming to, and is it like waking up from a deep sleep, and it takes you days to even figure out that you're a human, and that you're like who you are, and that you're Jason, and that you're a police officer and you've been involved in something? Or, I mean, what's it even like coming out of something like that?
And for me, it was because of medically induced coma, not like a traumatic brain injury or anything like that. The medicine they use, it's like a memory blocker. It's like they'll use them nowadays. So when people go get colonoscopies, they can be awake and talking, and they're lucid like you and I are talking right now, but they won't remember it. So I was on that. I was on morphine. And so when I woke up, which was a long time after the accident, but I woke up just right away knowing I was in the hospital.
What was the proximity from March to?
So March 26th was the accident, and they woke me up on June 12th.
Oh my gosh.
2.5 months.
Did you have any sense of how much time had passed?
No, it was a split second. And when I woke up, I had just so many thoughts going through my mind instantly. I'm like, why can't I open my eyes? Why can't I move? I was just at work. What is going on? It was confusion. It was fear. It was just all these things. But instantly, and I can't remember, I think I coughed or something, and my wife was in the room with me, and right away she started talking to me. And I'll never forget how calm and strong her voice was, but also it brought me a little bit of peace, just being like, okay, there's my wife's here. But then it was also like, well, I was just at work, and now my wife's talking to me. Something has to be really wrong. But I know what it was. I couldn't feel it because of all the medication. I couldn't see.
Yeah.
And and then we started through the, very short series of, okay, you were in a car accident. Well, when was it? And when she told me the date and what that day was, then things got really confusing and scary because I'm like, 2.5 months? I can't understand what you're saying. Like, and I knew right away, I'm like, oh my God, I missed our anniversary. I missed my son Zane, I missed his 3rd birthday. I'm like, what are you telling me? And then she told me my car caught on fire. And that was the one thing that I was scared of. My whole life was fire. And again, it's just, I guess I should be thankful, or I am thankful that the way we are designed, no matter what you believe in, the way our emotions and our mental state is designed, you can only process so much at once.
Yeah, it's overload. Yeah.
To say that something is surreal, that is very true. It's almost like you're listening to a story about somebody else and you're trying to process it, and you're asking a lot of, like, what? Can you repeat that?
You have to dissociate or detach because it's just too much.
Doesn't make any sense what you're telling me. And she didn't, to her credit, she didn't overload me with, all the extent of the injuries, how I looked. And my God, I don't know how she was processing because my appearance today this is 56 surgeries later, and I could win a damn beauty contest compared to those first days where I was just bandaged up and still bleeding, and my burns were, it's just horrible. And I have all the pictures from that. I made my doctors give me every picture they took, which was in the thousands, because they would take them all day, every day. Yeah. And I remember my doctor saying, I don't want to give you these pictures. And I was like, no. And this was like 10 years after that I asked for the pictures. And so I have those, so I know what I look like when I was in my coma. I know what I look like right when I woke up, and to think that of what she was staring at as my wife. But she was very slow, and just like, you're in a car accident, the car caught on fire, you're in the hospital, you're alive, the kids are fine, things like that was, like, well, how are we getting paid? Oh, the city's still taking care of you. You're still getting your paychecks. I took a hiatus from my job. We would have like normal conversations about
practical things.
Yeah. And then I was slowly, I went through different emotions every day. I would cry a lot. I'd be angry. I'd be scared. My dad would come visit me, and I'd ask him a question that, if I could build up the strength to ask, because before you ask a question, you got to be sure you want the answer, right?
Yeah.
So I would ask him a question, or if I had a nurse along with me, I'd be like, all right, without my family listening, tell me what they won't tell me. And I did that kind of day by day, slowly, to put the pieces of the puzzle together. It felt like, life had been shattered into 1,000 pieces, obviously. Well, I had to put that back together, and nobody else could do it for me. They could support me and they could be there for me, but they couldn't put it back together for me. We have to do that. And so that's just the process I started going on.
And so June, you wake up, where are we at as far as timeline when you think you can leave? Or, you hear about people being in the hospital for years after serious burns.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's, well, they told me, it took me about 3 weeks after I woke up to get my attitude. And these were the days when I was thinking about, like, all right, well, the taxi driver, he could have hit and killed somebody else, and I'm glad he didn't. He didn't target me. And I took a lot of accountability for so many decisions I had made over so many years of my life. I gave up a college golf scholarship. I spent 4 years in the military. I became a cop because of the death of another officer. When they put the application in front of you, the first box is, what's your name? Well, I wrote my name in that box. That was me. So I got to have some accountability.
Yeah.
for everything that has happened to me, good and bad. So it took me about 3 weeks to get to the point where I said, all right, I'm gonna start fighting. I'm gonna I'm not just gonna lay here. I'm gonna make an effort. And I asked the doctors, this was the end of June, and I said, when do you think I'm going to go home? And
What took you to get there? Sorry, that's so important, I think, man. Like at some point you owned everything. Like you just owned it all, and you didn't, I can think of times in my life, certainly not even we're not even in the ballpark of what you went through, but like, I admit I have failures of like, I kind of blame the universe, or I'll blame a situation, I'll blame another person, or I'll blame my circumstances on anything else but me just owning it. And I think it's a human condition, but like what was the switch, or was it a gradual thing? And you just saw no other way than I have to look at it this way, or I'm not going to get out of here.
Yeah, for me, it actually was a switch. I think for some people it could be a gradual thing, and I knew right away it had been so easy to blame the driver, or to be mad at God, or to question, why me, and say things like I was serving my community, I was minding my business at a traffic light. And I could have said all these things, but on this one particular night when I was thinking a lot about the guy who hit me and how in the world did this happen? As a cop, I expected to possibly get hurt in a fight, or be shot or something like that. I never expected to get rear-ended and have my car explode. So I did a lot of thinking about that, and after realizing, okay, he wasn't targeting me, he wasn't trying to hurt Jason, and that old saying, holding a grudge or being angry, it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's just not how it's not going to do you any good. But it was a switch for me to realize, what, I am exactly where I chose to be. But the choices I'm talking about were all the way back to high school. I mean, anything that I do different does not put me in that intersection at 11:21 p.m. on March 26th. And I was overcome with just a sense or a feeling of empowerment when I chose to be accountable. And everything that's happened since, it's the same thing. You know what? This is nobody's fault, but yours. And I'm not putting blame on that. I wasn't doing anything wrong, but it's just, for me, it gave me the strength I needed to say, all right, then every choice I make starting right now will take me where I need to go. So why don't we do that instead of either staying in place or, God forbid, going backwards? I'm not going to think about suicide. I'm not going to try to get my hands on as many Percocet and Vicodin as they'll give me. I'm not going to, I can't wait till I can, drink a bottle of whiskey. I just wasn't going to think like that. Yeah. And who was I also to give up on the people that stayed by my side the whole time I was in a coma? Like, they were there the whole time. And I don't know what they went through. So when I wake up, if, one of the first urges and words out of my mouth was, screw this, I'm going to give up. That's so unfair. I would have never wanted to do that. So, for me, it really was a switch, and I'm glad. But then I also continued everything about the positive momentum. Once it started building from there, it just was unstoppable. And it was, it just kept getting better and better and better and better, which gives you more strength and motivation to keep going in that direction. So it wasn't like, oh, I tried my best and I can't beat this, which that does happen to people. I'm not disrespecting that, but I just continued to have incredible things happen to me that gave me the motivation to continue, even though it wasn't easy. Obviously, I mean, the pain, the surgeries.
Oh, you're reading my mind. I one thing that's striking about you is that you never talk about the physical pain. And I mean, someone burns themselves on the stove and they're talking about it for 2 or 3 days. Like, you've not once said, I mean, the pain must have been like, you can't even chart it on a scale, like subjectively. It must have been just off the charts, excruciating.
Yeah, it was.
And just being uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was horrendous to say the least. But again, I think all these years later, what's beautiful about the way we are designed is it's difficult to remember that amount of pain. I mean, when I was in it, yeah. And you're right, being uncomfortable, not being able to move, losing half my fingers, and I just couldn't do anything. And every time I would have surgery, then yes, I'd be in a ton of pain again. I would go to therapy, and believe me, there were days my therapist got yelled at. I'm like, and cussed at. I'm like, this is so hard, and I just don't feel like doing it today. You know what? Maybe I will tomorrow, but I just am not up for it today. And then, I had good therapists. They'd push back, and they didn't mind if we had to have a little argument or a fight once in a while. And then, we would embrace that just as much as we embraced when I did achieve something that they were trying to get me to achieve. I mean, God, when I first was able to walk on my own again, the first time I was able, it took me probably 6 months to where because I had laid motionless in bed for so long. It took about 6 months for me to hold a spoon that was specially made and strapped to my hand, but to bring that to my mouth it took like 6 months to do that. And when I finally was able to, put a spoonful of food in my mouth, oh my goodness, you would have thought it was.
Yeah. You did a backflip. Yeah.
Like I scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl or something. Yeah. I'm like, hey, look what I did. So yeah, there were a lot of very difficult days, obviously, and a lot of darkness, but I would supplement that with when I got home at night from therapy or surgery. You know what? I can hear the sound of my children's voices. They don't know what I've been through, and they don't deserve to know. They have to deal with looking at my appearance. They have to deal with learning that I'm still their dad and I'm going to do the best I can. And then I'd be home with my wife, or I'd be listening to something as simple as, I love baseball. So it's my favorite sport. And my Arizona Diamondbacks were winning the World Series that fall. And I would listen to a game, even though I was blind, I would be cheering for them. And I would, I'm like, God, sometimes I want to tell these athletes, it's fun to bitch at them and complain about them. You make $1 million, and yeah, that's all fun and fine. But the truth is, like, sometimes I want to walk up to them and be like, do you know what you do for people? Truly? Like, it matters. So don't take it for granted. And I love listening to those games. And then I would get stronger after each therapy session. They would fix something in a surgery. And again, just that gave me the motivation, like, all right, when's the next one? What's next? And then, very quickly after that, in January of 2002, I carried the Olympic torch. Then I met the President of the United States. Then I threw out the first pitch at a Diamondbacks game. And then we had our third child 18 months later. I mean, just these huge inspirational moments. And definitely the birth of our third child was the one that was like the final. It was just the final flag I needed to hang to say, now I get it, because perspective is everything, right? And I'll admit I didn't have a perspective for about 18 months. I had the will to fight, and I had the gratitude that I was alive. But when my son was born, and I realized, this life shouldn't even exist. The whole life should not even exist. And, he could grow up and have 3 or 4 children. They could grow up and have 3 or 4 children. This one moment in time, no matter what it looks like or how painful it was, is going to go on for generations that, might not have existed. And And, now all these years later, it's just a beautiful thing to see what he's doing and what my other kids are doing. And yeah, just, I was able to make it through all those dark days just with a constant, just reaching a milestone and then what's next.
At what point, and when I saw your talk, I felt that it, obviously you're constrained by time and you could give a presentation for a week about everything, but you're like, I decided I wanted to go back and work again. I mean, you had a whole other second career as a detective. I mean, gosh, at that point you're like so blessed, like everything's going great, like you're golfing again. I mean, you're doing all these things. You've hit all these different echelons, and you're like, I want to go back.
Yeah,
like that's still the spark that you had to serve as an officer or serve with the police department.
Yeah, I think for me it was twofold. And looking back, it's kind of funny. My friends and family, we laugh about it because I would say it while I was still in the burn unit. I hadn't even left there to go to therapy. And, I lost half my fingers. My hands are incredibly deformed and mangled. I can't see, I'm blind. And I'm actually telling people I'm going back to work. And, of course, family and friends are like, okay, that's cool, Jace.
How much did you weigh at the time? Because you're tall. And when I saw the picture of you standing up by the doctors, I mean, you look like...
Oh, I weighed like 120 pounds. I was so frail and sick. But I think both, law enforcement is one of those jobs, or at least for me, it was, it was a calling, and it wasn't 40 hours a week or some decent benefits. It was who I was all the time. I was a Phoenix police officer, and I am not giving that up. I don't care if a few doctors or even my family are like, Jason, you can't go back to work. That's up to me. And the city was very supportive. The police chief even came into my room one day and he said, you're a cop as long as you want to be. It's not up to us. And that was incredibly empowering for him. He could have, and a lot of departments across this country, unfortunately, do cut people loose. And that causes them a lot of problems. But I think that was probably 90% of it. But the other 10% was I knew that would be the final achievement of you're okay. If you can return to work and be productive as a police officer, then these injuries are settled. You have overcome them. And that was just something I said in my mind that was where I had to get to prove to myself that I knew it changed my appearance. I knew it changed our lives. It changed a lot of lives. It changed everybody from the firefighters who witnessed it to the doctors who operated on me to my entire family. But it didn't have to change who I was on the inside and who I wanted to be for other people. And so that was I went back to work 2 weeks after my son was born, 18 months. And what I love about that memory is not only did I go back to work, but I got into a truck by myself and I drove back to work alone. And let me tell you, I was so scared. It's kind of funny. But I remember saying goodbye to my wife, and I think she was scared. And I had driven by myself for all those months. And I remember driving down Interstate 10 and going to the main police headquarters and just, wow, you talk about freedom. You talk about strength. And oh God, that first drive was just everything to me. And when I got there and parked my truck, I'm like, that's it. You made it. You're and I still had surgeries to have to go through. I still had things to work on, but I was now back at work. And I walked through those doors with my held head high and I'm like, let's go. So it was awesome.
It's like the ultimate closure there. It's like full circle.
Yeah.
but it's unbelievable. I'll end it with, I want to get your thoughts on, and it was what struck me the most. And, especially in, it can be in the corporate world, and you have motivational speakers and, folks on leadership, but there was something totally different about your message. And, when I listen to you talk, and even as I'm sitting here in real time listening to you talk, I'm there's this little voice that's like, Sean, how dare you ever complain about anything at all? Like, how dare you do that? Like, you're talking to a hero here who has been through like the worst thing you can go through and come out on the other side so positive and inspirational. But you said, don't do that. You said your problems are valid and they're real, and you don't have to dismiss them. And you weren't, I don't know if I'm capturing the message right, Jason, but I don't know. I just saw, I felt okay that, like, okay, I don't have to come away with this just being like, I can't ever think what I'm going through is not difficult.
Yeah, you know what, you are getting it right. And this is something I believe in probably more than anything else. And it was something that evolved throughout a lot of years of speaking. And then I would hear, like you said, somebody would come up and say, you made my problems look small and I won't complain anymore. And right away I was like, no, listen, there's no way that everybody in this country or in this world is going to go through the same things at the same times. And we simply cannot compare what we're going through to somebody else. And it's one thing to be like, oh, I wish I was a professional baseball player that made $10 million a year and hit home runs. But it's 10 times that on the side of adversity. If you start comparing yourself to somebody else, you're not allowing yourself the respect of your own human experience. It's yours. You aren't anybody else. You don't get to be anybody else. You don't get to have what I do. You don't get to live my life. I don't get to live yours. And so it doesn't matter what you're going through. You get a flat tire on the way to work and you're missing an important meeting, or you lose, if the circle of life goes the right way and you lose your grandparents, your parents, or you do get, how many people out there are battling cancer right now? I don't look at them. I have respect and compassion, but I don't look at them and say, oh, thank God I don't have that. I could deal with this. No, you have cancer, and good luck I hope you have the strength to fight it, and I hope you win. And I'm not going to take my burns away, my eyesight, my whatever I have. I just don't think it's fair to us to get caught up in somebody else's adversity, because then how are we going to get through ours? And man, as we sit here today, there's a lot more coming for us, a lot more. And the only way to be ready for that is to know that we overcame what we have in the past. You've overcome a lot of things in your life to get to where you are today. And it can be mental, spiritual, physical, emotional, but life is constantly trying to take you out of the game. And I just don't think we should view how somebody else is playing their game. You have your own story, and you got to live it. And it's your experience. I could talk about this for hours, because I believe so strongly in exactly that, which is just be yourself and embrace what you're going through. And listen, I have bad days. I cry still. I get angry. I get anxious. There's days that I'm just like, God, life could be so much better. Well, yeah, it could, and it could be worse. And we could put all these adjectives and words, but you know what? Here's what I'm going through today. And I try to remind myself, am I really having a bad day, or am I having a bad 20 minutes? And then my attitude is overtaking me. And I'm in control of that. At any given time during the day, I can stop and say, you know what? I'm going to go down a different road that has a lot more green lights and has a lot more or a lot less bumps in it. That's our attitude on how we choose to kind of start and stop throughout the day. And I just
that was another thread too. You talked a lot about choices, how basically where we're at sitting right now is a culmination of hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands or millions of choices we've made on a daily basis.
100%. Where you are sitting right now, what you are doing right now is 100% because of the choices that you've made throughout your life, as well as people close to you or the people who hired you. It is a culmination of all those choices, but you are 100% where you have chosen to be. And I believe that without a doubt.
Well, I'll leave it with, I am very thankful that I've made whatever choices I made to have gotten to spend this hour with you, Jason. I can't thank you enough. I'm trying to pull back from crying, but I appreciate it so much. This has just been amazing.
I appreciate you so much. You have no idea. And I think it was fortuitous that we met and you heard my story, and then the fact that I got to share again with you and your listeners, it means a lot to me. And now I get to spend the rest of the day very inspired because I got to brag about my family and share my story. And I thank you very much.
And I want you to brag a little bit more. Can you talk about Burning Shield a little bit and, anything else that's going on? Because, I mean, you've taken the most unbelievable event in your life that could have gone a completely different way and turned it into just something so positive.
Yeah, Burning Shield is a book that I have that the author did an amazing job. It took me 8 years and 3 authors to get this book right. It's available on Amazon, and burningshield.com is my website. I'm very easy to get a hold of on Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm the only one who answers my emails, jason@burningshield.com. And I travel the country doing speeches just like you saw in Washington, D.C. last month. I'd love to hear from anybody. I'd love to share my story with anybody who thinks there's some value in it for their group. And that's just what I hope to keep doing for a very, very long time.
I hope that too. Thanks again, Jason. Thank you so much.
Thank you, bud.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of It's Settled, the Ametros podcast. For more information and episodes, you can visit us at our website at ametros.com. That's ametros.com. Or head over to iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. We hope you enjoyed this episode and look forward to sharing more stories of people overcoming their workplace accidents and bodily injury claims, and those who are working hard to make a difference for them. So it's settled. We'll see you next time.